16 years ago, South Africa opened the World Cup with a match versus Mexico. Now, Mexico would be hosting South Africa to open the 2026 World Cup. And what better venue to host this than the Estadio Azteca, a fortress like no other. You have to be prepared when coming to play Mexico here. South Africa didn't seem to do that though. Right off kickoff, reality quickly set in, and Bafana were themselves in front of the loud Mexican crowd. 1-0 Mexico, and it's not even been 10 minutes. Things did not get any better. In fact, they got so much worse. South Africa looked more lost than a child in IKEA and went down to 10 men right at the beginning of the second half. Mexico take full advantage of this to double their lead, and of course it had to be Raul Jimenez on the end of it. He escaped death just 6 years ago, worked so hard to return to not only play the sport he loved, but to thrive in it once more, only to then have life knock him down again with the death of his father in March. Soak in all the elation, buddy. Mexico is so proud of you.
Okay, what do we say? What do we say? What went wrong in this game?
Later that night was the other Group A fixture between South Korea and Czechia. The Koreans were in full control, but with the lack of a cutting-edge attack, Czechia's Haram Ball would pull together a single surprise attack and take the lead at the hour mark. The Czechs then proceed to sub on fucking Shaquille O'Neal to hold down the fort, and with Son being played out of position by a dumbfuck coach and also being kinda washed, the situation for the Koreans was looking pretty dire. That was until midfielder Hwang In-byum stepped up and sunned the opposition's defenders with the coldest of finishes. It's not even been a day yet! Then, with 10 minutes left, Korean Paul Scholes squares it so precisely to Oh Hyun-gyu, and South Korea win their first opener for the first time since 2010. This is just the beginning, Hyun-gyu. On to day 2, where we kicked off Group B with Canada hosting Bosnia in Drakeland. Bosnia was hoping to improve upon their last appearance in 2014, and they were off to an amazing start after Jovo Lukic headed home from the corner. Meanwhile, for the host Canada, expectations were high, but firstly they needed to get over the hump of winning a World Cup match for the first time in their history. And while they were playing with so much more confidence and quality now, one issue remained. A coked up Rob Ford could finish better than any of their strikers. By the way, I was at a Bosnia watch party. Doing the old LARP, if you will. And I was having a blast. Up until halftime, because I was greeted with God's greatest creation of a dilemma. Listen to Alexi Lalas, or acknowledge Sneeko. Anyways, with enough persistence, Canada eventually found the back of the net through, ironically enough, Kyle Larin, a guy who hadn't scored since 2024. Hello, it's me from post-production about 2 weeks later. It's currently 1:33 in the morning, and I just realized that after all this work that I've put into this video, I forgot about Qatar, Switzerland, and I'm sorry, dog, but I'm not putting the effort at 1:34 in the morning, so here's the score. You're welcome. On to the country basically hosting about 75% of this tournament. The US of A. They hosted this tournament back in 1994, which kickstarted popularity for the sport. The national team wasn't that great though. But now 32 years later, they're better than ever before. And now was a huge opportunity to show it off in front of a nation so desperate for unity. Well, that was the case for everyone. Besides MAGA Messi Christian Pulisic, who told GQ magazine, quote, "This World Cup was just another big tournament."
Man, shut the fuck up!
Although, for as good as the US men's national team were, they could not underestimate their opponents. Gustavo Alfaro's Paraguay, a team in qualifiers that had beaten Brazil and even the reigning champions Argentina.
Pulisic in the box, Weston McKennie into the middle, it's an own goal! It's the United States on the board! Tyler Adams, great first touch, still Adams, Balogun tight angle, it's in! Balogun, can he get inside? Still Balogun, Flo Balogun! Get there, and Cecil to the far side, Mauricio!
America is not the greatest country in the world.
Over in the other Group D match, you had Turkey versus Australia. Turkey returned to the World Cup for the first time since 2002 when they finished third, and many believed that they were dark horses going into this one. including the players. So confident, in fact, that Hakan Çalhanoğlu said this before the game.
I think that we dominate tomorrow the game because we have more qualities and more talented teams.
And then in the tunnel right before the game, Turkey's golden boy Arda Güler said, "We are much better, let them feel it from the very first minute." Here's the thing about being a dark horse though. You need players who can put the ball in the net. Turkey didn't have that. But the nightmare was just starting, as in the 26th minute, a counter from the Aussies is followed up with some magic from Nestor İrankunda, and Australia take an early lead. This did not stop the Turkish spirit though. Spirit can only get you so far when you have 28 shots and score none of them though. And as the stiff Turkish attack looked like the Houston Rockets under any bit of pressure, the Aussies once more pounced on a quick attack and bagged a second. While Aussies were celebrating a historic victory, getting them that much closer to a second straight appearance in the knockouts, the collective delusion behind this Turkish side erupted as a cope volcano. Cope-cano.
You said yesterday that Turkey had a more talented team and that you would dominate this match. What went wrong for you, and were you surprised by Australia's performance and talent?
We didn't dominate?
No, I think you did on possession, sure.
Sorry?
Possession, yes.
I'm not in the same... I don't think they're the same like you.
Oh, you also had this one guy on Twitter using transfer market pages as a gotcha. You know what's significantly more threatening than Turkey's attack, though? Using public Wi-Fi unprotected. But Maxwell, it's just gonna be a minute, okay? I'm at the airport, I need some internet right now, okay? Like, nothing bad will happen. Yeah, well, it doesn't matter if you're in shark-infested waters for a minute or an hour. You're still gonna get eaten. Listen, just take my advice to avoid any of your private information being stolen by using Surfshark, baby! Surfshark uses humanized privacy and security solutions to safeguard your data, meaning you can now browse the internet safely without any stress of someone stealing your personal information. By the way, I've been thinking a lot about the country of Uzbekistan as of late. I don't know, it's just so pretty. If I were to visit though, and I wanted to watch my favorite show, more than likely it'll be region locked. Luckily with Surfshark, I can just click my way out of Uzbekistan and back to the States. That easy. And this is all thanks to Surfshark's over 4,500 servers in 140 different locations. Surfshark also has some new features this year, including one that detects email scams. So, have I got you excited now? Well, if so, you can use my link displayed on the video or in the description to get Surfshark for an extra 4 free months. And there's no risk in trying this out because Surfshark has a 30-day money-back guarantee. So use my link, surfshark.com/Mac, to access region-locked content anywhere in the world and keep your private information safe. And a big thank you to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. In a Group C now, where you had Scots and Brazilians vibing in Times Square. This might be the only time I will ever say I was sad I was not in Times Square. But those two weren't playing each other just yet. First, we had Brazil versus Morocco. The email champs of Africa were coming off a historic semifinals appearance in the last edition, but many believed this was going to be a one-hit wonder story. Morocco had other ideas, however, and shocked the entire world again, going up 1-0 against the 5-time champs. Albeit the 5-time champs haven't won in 24 years. However, it wouldn't be that easy for the Moroccans. Brazil would quickly respond with an equalizer about 10 minutes later through Vini Jr. And that's how this one would end, but each team felt very different about the results. Morocco, who have appropriated the name Brazil of Africa, out-Braziled Brazil, while Brazilians, who have gone through loads of pain as of recent, have basically been driven to insanity now. Meanwhile, in the other Group C fixture, we had two nations returning after a long hiatus. Scotland are back for the first time since 1998, Haiti 1974. Haitian fans in the States were having a fantastic time, but the Scots basically invaded the entirety of Boston, like the Filipino diaspora. These motherfuckers were everywhere. They flooded every bar to drink every drop of alcohol imaginable, they were drunkenly chanting at baseball games, hell, these motherfuckers even went down the famous Boston slide. Anyways, in a feisty game with a total of 40 fouls between both teams, Scotland's Haram ball would prevail with a lucky deflection to win their first World Cup match since 1990. Scotland forever! But not without some controversy. In the 79th minute, Haiti should have been awarded a penalty for this handball, and then also you had this. Into Group B, we started with Germany versus one of the smallest nations in this tournament, Curacao. For Curacao, this was their first ever World Cup since becoming a FIFA member only 12 years ago. Germany didn't really give a shit about that though. However, the Blue Wave wasn't gonna leave just happy being here, and in the 21st minute, Livano Comenencia makes history for his country.
Okay, Garmin. Video speichern.
Later that same evening, we saw the other Group B contest, Ecuador versus Ivory Coast. Many saw Ecuador as a big dark horse pick due to their talent and how indestructible their defense was in qualifiers. Here's the thing about dark horses though. You need someone who can put the ball in the net. Ecuador didn't have that, but even then, the defense was struggling quite a bit, with Arsenal's Piero Hincapié in particular getting dog-walked by the pace of Yan Diomande. What the hell is even going on? Oh. Okay, that makes a lot more sense now. Rule of thumb to anyone that's not from the States. You see this statue here, this Rocky statue? If you want your team to win, don't dress it up in your team's shirt. With the combination of pressure and now spirits beyond their reach, Ecuador were faltering while the Ivorian offensive grew stronger. And eventually the dam of Quito was broken as Ivory Coast Amad Diallo scores the winner in the 90th minute to mark the country's first World Cup win since their last appearance in 2014. Group F started on the same day with a heavyweight battle between the Netherlands and Japan. Winner gets Indonesia, loser has to admit their war crimes. The first half was some of the most uneventful football we have seen this tournament so far, but it appeared FIFA had told the teams in the dressing room that a draw meant that they would both have to admit their war crimes. Because in the second half, it was a completely different game. 50 minutes played, Ryan Gravenberch delivers a ball of dreams straight to the head of Virgil van Dijk and the Netherlands take the lead. 6 minutes later though, Keito Nakamura fizzes one from the edge of the box, and with the help of a deflection, Japan tie it all up at 1. The attacks just keep coming though, 63 minutes played now. Crescencio Somerville hits it into the bottom corner and the Dutch restore their lead. But the Japanese just would not give up, and after some effective substitutions, it all pays off with a late header in the 88th minute, and despite multiple key players being injured, Japan make a really good first impression. Then we had the other Group F game, Sweden versus Tunisia. Sweden being here felt like a fluke, and their chances of doing anything weren't looking great. Tunisia, however, were doing everything in their power to be the nation with the worst chances after they sacked the very coach who got them to this tournament back in January of this year. Speaking of these two nations, Sweden's Yasin Ayari is of Tunisian descent. And when Tunisia confirmed an early ticket to the World Cup, fans were mocking Ayari on his socials since Sweden was looking extremely unlikely to qualify themselves. And he definitely didn't forget.
Still a chance available here for Sweden. That's it! Ayari after the turnover with another spectacular effort.
Tunisia conceded 3 more goals and was embarrassed 5-1, and following the result, they continued to absolutely implode. Into the next day, teams in Group H kicked off their campaigns. So much can change in just 4 years. Spain have gone from crashing out in the last 16 of the last tournament to now being one of the biggest favorites to win it all. And all it took was them finally developing world-class wingers, Nico Williams and Lamine Yamal. Unfortunately, both of them were still dealing with some injury trouble here and there, so they would not be starting this game. But it's newcomers Cape Verde, okay? Like, this shouldn't be an issue. You underestimate the pure ineptitude this team brings when they don't have their wingers. What also wasn't helping was the fact that Cape Verde's 40-year-old keeper Volsinha was putting on a clinic. His heroic displays saw 8 crucial saves and a historic point for debutants Cape Verde. Psych! Here comes Lamine Yamal to spoil the party.
Inside for Llorente, surveys the options right at Volsinha.
And with Volsinha's masterclass of a performance, debutants Cape Verde produced the biggest shock so far and draw with the European champions in their first ever World Cup game. But don't forget the other defenders that played a massive role in this. Also not to mention, Cape Verde only conceded 1 foul. One of those defenders, by the way, was recruited through LinkedIn. I love this game.
I think it could be 7, 8, 9. If you're looking at Cape Verde to Spain, what are you talking about in, say, the English league? You're talking about, like, champions of England maybe, playing against what? Conference teams would be Cape Verde.
You haven't had fireworks at any of your games because you've never challenged for proper honours. You played a mediocre player in a mid-table team. So I'd rather listen to people like Michael Owen.
That's not nice, Alan.
Onto the other Group H fixture, Uruguay versus Saudi Arabia. And I swear to God, they coked up these keepers in this group as some kind of CIA experiment. Saudi Arabia's Mohamed Al-Owais had godlike reaction timing, and Uruguay's Fernando Muslera, yes, that Muslera, was even having a good game at the ripe age of 80. Unfortunately for the two keepers, they were no match for the dreaded rebound. Group G started with Belgium versus Egypt, and the Egyptians would stun the favorites of the group just 20 minutes into the match. Actually, it's not really that much of a shock because this Belgian side has been on fraud watch since 2022, and they also have no striker. However, Belgium had one trick up their sleeve. Okay, please tell me you're joking. Lukaku? You mean the guy who missed like 4 chances in 2022? Don't make me laugh. Oh, then there was Iran versus New Zealand, a game that had a lot of controversy stirring before the match even started. With the ongoing war unfolding in Iran, because of the United States, players of the national team didn't feel like their safety was being prioritized in the slightest. The team's camp had to be moved to Mexico because according to the Federation, the US were refusing to host them. Also, the whole team was basically being accused of trying to sneak in terrorists. Very warm welcome. Then when Iran came to LA to play New Zealand, a bunch of people against the regime protested outside of the national team's hotel. I don't think these morons realize that speaking out against the country doesn't only risk your life, but also your families, but okay. Anyways, enough of that. Let's talk ball. It had been over 16 years since the last time New Zealand were in the World Cup, but with the way they were playing early on, you would have thought they had won this shit in 2022. Just 5 minutes in, New Zealand's attackers link up brilliantly, and who just scored? Elijah just scored. However, Iran started finding a bit of a rhythm not long after, and they respond in the 31st minute through Amin Rezaian. Surely things would return to normal, right? Well, not if Chris Wood keeps playing like 2018 Olivier Giroud, and who just scored again? Elijah just scored again. But again, Iran just won't stand down, and after grabbing the first equalizer, Ramin delivers a dime into the box to assist the second. So in the end, Group G would see another draw to begin the tournament. Into the group of death now, where France and Senegal would kick it all off for us. And for this match, the runners-up of 2022 decided to do something quite different last minute before their game. You know how Didier Deschamps is. Anyways, they cloned Upamecano. It took a bit for the French to get things running, but come the second half, they looked like proper contenders, with Michael Olise and Adrien Rabiot each threading the most beautiful passes to make it 2-0 by the 82nd minute. But Senegal still has a good team. You can never count them out until the final whistle is blown. Iraq vs Norway next, but hold on, it's another country that the US has history with, which only means it's necessary to detain one of their star players and question them for 7 hours. After no appearances for 28 years, the Norwegians were quick to make a statement in just the 28th minute, and of course it had to be the 2019 U20 World Cup top scorer, Erling Haaland. However, Iraq weren't here just to be some whipping boys, and just 10 minutes later, Ayman Hussein heads in the equalizer. But Erling Haaland wasn't about to have this nonsense, especially after all the failed qualification campaigns, as he becomes an actual cannibal. Now, if you thought that was pretty terrifying, we now have live 3D models to see the very moment the Iraqi keeper shit himself. From there, the Norwegians never looked back and bagged 2 more to produce a commanding 4-1 victory to start their tournament. Let's go Canes! Group J definitely had one of the more odd but extremely wholesome moments leading to this tournament. Algeria's camp was located in Lawrence, Kansas, and immediately the locals welcomed the team with open arms. There was so much love being shown, you had some of the whitest Midwestern people saying shit like this.
Rock chalk Algeria!
Unfortunately though, no energy beam of collective embrace would be enough to defeat football's most beloved artist, especially when your team has Lucas Zidane in net. And so to begin the reigning champs' defense of their title, Lionel Messi scores a hat-trick for the first time in his World Cup career. This also means he's now tied with all-time leading World Cup scorer Miroslav Klose. If you told me 8 years ago he'd do this, I would have personally booked you for a mental asylum. Meanwhile, in Times Square, at midnight my time, you had the other Group J fixture between Austria, who make their first appearance since 1998, and debutants, Jordan. Jordanians pulled up at 6 AM to watch their nation in hopes of seeing a similar Cinderella story like their Asian Cup run. However, the Austrians had other ideas, as Romano Schmidt scores a banger just 20 minutes played. And so the Jordanian players decided to turn to someone for advice.
Put the entire mortgage on red.
It doesn't motivate the national team whatsoever. Instead, the Jordanians slowly start finding a rhythm by themselves, and boom, Ali Olwan curls in a beauty to make history for his nation. Nonetheless, the Austrians went back to business completely unfazed and retook the lead with less than 15 to play. They then sealed the deal with a late penalty to come out victors in a World Cup game for the first time since 1990. Up next, another group with 2 massive heavyweights. Meanwhile, the other 2 would probably have to throw all they had to have a chance at even escaping. And DR Congo, who haven't seen the tournament in over 50 years, would step up for their biggest challenge right off the bat versus one of the tournament favorites in Portugal. Here's the thing though, and I've said this many times. Portugal are heavy favorites to win this World Cup, but only if Ronaldo doesn't start. And lo and behold, what a surprise! I'm right again. After taking the lead through a goal from João Neves that he dedicated to his late mother, Portugal's attack was constantly stifled by Homelando himself. Then, right before the end of the first half, DR Congo scored their first ever World Cup goal. Cue the live exhaust reaction. Usually in these circumstances, you change something. You take off the ineffective players. But Roberto Martinez is in an ongoing quest of failing up so that one day he too can become the president of the United States. So in the end, DR Congo leave jubilant with a draw, while Portugal open a highly anticipated campaign, very underwhelming.
Washed. Good cardio session, Bomb. What did you even do out there for 90 minutes?
After the match, a reporter asked João Neves, quote, "This Portugal team is very collective. It's also Cristiano Ronaldo's last World Cup. How do you manage all that?" João Neves responded well, saying that at the end of the day, Ronaldo is just another player in a team eager to make something out of this tournament. A very good response to this situation. I mean, no player is bigger than the team. Well, unless you're a delusional Ronaldo dick rider. After his comments, Neves lost 2 million followers on Instagram, and his posts were flooded with the most deranged shit imaginable. But it wasn't just him. Numerous Portuguese players were being accused of, quote, not passing enough to Ronaldo, and sabotaging him in his last World Cup. Someone even posted this. I swear to God, these guys are actually worse than K-pop stans. Into the other game now, where you had potential dark horses Colombia versus newcomers Uzbekistan. By the way, for the flag sickos, Uzbekistan has a very similar flag to Cali, a city in Colombia. Anyways, 40 minutes played, Luis Diaz, coming off an unbelievable season, floats a care package straight to Daniel Munoz, and a Crystal Palace player has scored the first goal for Colombia. Into the second half though, Uzbekistan get more comfortable and eventually are imposters no longer. And on the end of it, it's Abosek Faisilayev, the U23 and U20 Asian Cup winner, the Uzbek prodigy, now on the biggest stage of them all, stunning a Colombia heavy crowd. Colombia would quickly spoil the party though, with Luis Diaz grabbing himself a goal just 5 minutes later, and then right at the death, Columbus Crew's own Cucho Hernandez delivers the coldest of deliveries to Campaz's head for 3. In the build-up to this tournament, Group L's England had probably the most chaotic experience of anyone in the States. Even before they got to their camp, a shooting occurred a few miles away from it. Someone then robbed their boots before their first training session could even happen, and then because this camp is in Kansas, the players were forced to hide in a shelter because of a thunderstorm with tornado-like winds. And if you thought this wasn't all bad enough, Eberechi Eze publicly said he would not be changing his penalty run-up. This has to be seen as a threat to the nation. But despite all the tiring madness, England started strong versus Croatia and scored a penalty just 12 minutes in. However, the fears of England's defense being shaky came true as Croatia responded with a cracker of a shot. Fortunately for the English though, Declan Rice had brought from home the terrorism ball he learned from Netanyahu, and Kane has a brace. But again, the defense looked shaky and the Croatians equalized right before the break. Nonetheless, England's high-end talent once again comes to save the day through Jude Bellingham just 90 seconds into the second half. Marcus Rashford then sealed the deal to help the Three Lions collect an important 3 points in their opener. The other Group L match of Ghana vs Panama happened a little later, and the Ghanaians would sneak away with the winner in the 5th minute of stoppage time. And this definitely had nothing to do with the team finally subbing off Jordan Ayew after 87 minutes. Oh yeah, Thomas Partey was not available for this game after being denied entry into Canada because he lied about not having any criminal charges. Buddy, it's in the mainstream. How can you be this stupid? We began match day 2 with Group B, where unexpectedly everyone shares a point, but this was far from the end of the story. You could also say the same about Bosnia's shenanigans, as before their match versus the Swiss, their fans were marching through LA. But not just any part of LA, the Hood. If it isn't my favorite rivalry, the Bloods versus the Bosnians. This game was an absolute snorefest. Up until the 71st minute, when Switzerland subbed on Johan Manzambi. Just 3 minutes into his introduction, he takes advantage of a poor clearance from the Bosnian defense and hits it first-time volley right into the net. Then 6 minutes later, it's Manzambi again. This time he frees up Embolo, and the Bosnian defender has no choice but to give up a red card. But all that really did was hold off the inevitable, as another man subbed on in the 71st and Ruben Vargas slides home a second with less than 10 to play. From there, Switzerland would go on to add a couple more and win this one 4-1. Having still not overcome the barrier of getting their first win in the World Cup, Canada was hoping a match versus Qatar would finally be the moment. However, the Qataris were just coming off an impressive draw versus Switzerland, so it wasn't going to be that easy. Unfortunately for them, Jesse Marsch is a grade A sicko and personally traveled to Doha to study his competition just last year. Canada blitzed through Qatar's defense, and all their biggest fan Gianni Infantino could do was just sit in silence as his team got raw-dogged on live TV. By halftime, Canada was up 3-0. Qatar were no match for them, and they knew it. So they broke Ismail Kone's leg. However, the Canadians in his honor then dropped another 3 goals on Qatar's heads to win this one 6-0. And Yulin Lopetegui wasn't too happy about that, as after the match he confronted Jesse about going full press against a team with 9 men. Cry about it, I guess. I don't know. Into Group A now. Sorry, I'm doing this based on which group's game happened first that day, so this could get a little confusing. Anyways, Mexico and South Korea after one game both had 3 points each, with the Mexicans in first due to goal difference. These two countries have basically become long-lost brothers from across the pond, but now that friendship would be tested in a game that would more than likely determine who wins Group A. In a cautious first half, both teams had their chances, with Mexico coming closest to scoring. Now here come Mexico again right after the break. The cross is easily dealt with, but then no Korean bothers to communicate. Having just dug themselves a hole, the Koreans needed to get serious in attack. So they subbed off Son because he's washed. Quickly, the Korean attack starts finding a rhythm, and in the 75th minute, they nearly equalize. Then 86 minutes played. Korea's been all over the Mexicans. A cross is floated straight to Cho Gui-sung, but unfortunately for the Koreans, he may not be playing, but the spirit of Guillermo Ochoa has never been more alive. With what could be the save of the tournament already, Raul Rangel writes his name in Mexican folklore as the hosts win their group for the first time since 2002. After that was the other Group A game, Czechia vs South Africa. Both teams were seeking out their first win, and with the help of South Africa's defense still looking completely lost, the Czechs took the lead just 5 minutes in. However, South Africa finally realized they were playing in a World Cup, they looked much better in the second half, and eventually won a penalty to keep their World Cup hopes alive as both teams would share a point each. Group D now. Again, don't be mad at me for this order. This is on FIFA. But going into match day 2, quite similar to A, this group had 2 teams with 3 points each in the US and, more shockingly, Australia. And the second set of matches would begin with the battle for the top spot. Aussie boys on a bender, Donald Trump is a sex offender. I wish I could say this was the only thing that happened in the build-up to this game for the sake of the Aussies. Back in December of last year, during a reaction to the World Cup group draws, former player Mike Grella referred to Australia as one single word: layup. This singular clip from someone no one had really ever heard of managed to resurface a week before the game and rile up the entire country? I'm not even kidding, by the way. This shit managed to reach Aussie legend Harry Kewell. Even the players had heard about these nothing statements from an absolute nobody, and yet they couldn't help but respond. Brother, it's Mike Grella. He's as relevant as those random 14-year-olds that are always at the top of famousbirthdays.com. I saw a few of those videos. They'll be used as motivation, and Cam sure was motivated. For the first 11 minutes, the US went on to easily beat the Aussies 2-0. What a waste. On to the other match, where the other two teams were hoping to pick up their first win. Turkey had quite the hiccup versus Australia, but we all have bad games, and with how bad Paraguay's defense was, this presented an opportunity for the Turks to get things running. While Paraguay's scorer Matias Galarza was injecting himself into every bit of life in this game, and I mean every, Turkey's attack was giving me more reasons to never call them Türkiye. I mean, why the fuck are you trying that? Nevertheless, Turkey was determined to prove that they were not just a team from the mid-2010s that traveled to the future. And so came the second half.
Getirmişler. Halimize getirmişler. 5 yıldızlı oteller. O da yetmezmiş gibi. Bodrum'dan veriyorlar. Abi, stoper, diğer stopere, bu stoper sol beke, sol bek, Hakan, stopere, Hakan, stopere, stoper, sağ beke, sağ bek, sağ öne, lan böyle top oynanır mı? Lan böyle 630 değil, 830 tane yapsan.
62 shots, 0 goals. 62! They shut down a whole highway to Ora Farm only to score less than Tunisia. Tunisia have only had 8 shots! With the 1-0 loss to Paraguay, the Turks are officially the first team out of the World Cup, and the US officially win their group for the first time since 2010. Meanwhile, for Gustavo Alfaro's Paraguay, they still have hope of advancing, but that silly little Almiron red card could be an issue.
Number 10, Paraguay, cover his mouth!
decision is red card.
Over to Group C, and because of Brazil and Morocco's draw, the Scottish currently hold onto the top spot with their win versus Haiti. Speaking of the Scots, their adventures in Boston were nowhere near done yet. They were breaking records in alcoholism and managed to get the state of Massachusetts to legalize haggis? I didn't even know haggis was illegal there. Anyways, Scotland's next game would be versus Morocco. They were their toughest opponents yet, but you can never underestimate the great Scotsman. Ding dong, the wicked bitch is dead. Scotland forever! We need to kill Grant Hanley. The silky smooth Moroccans could have made it 2 or 3, like within the first 10 minutes, but we got pretty fortunate. Nonetheless, once the Scotsman not named Grant Hanley weathered the storm, they finally grew into the game and began to create some chances. That may be the least threatening statement in this entire tournament so far. Later that night was Brazil versus Haiti, and with all Brazilians on edge, and I mean really on edge.
Oh wait, there's one more thing.
And it pays off big time as the forward bags the brace in just 35 minutes. Oh my god, guys, look, it's Neymar. Group E next. Germany had a commanding lead at the top after their pummeling of Curacao, while second place had surprise guest Ivory Coast after they stunned dark horses Ecuador. And to begin match day 2 in the group, it would be the top 2 going against each other, with Germany dominating early on, but again, like the past 2 World Cups, they were struggling with end product. And it didn't take long for that to bite the 4-time champs in the ass again, as Ivory Coast would make yet another statement to the world just 30 minutes in. But good news, Germans, your coach finally subbed off Leroy Sané. And even better, he subbed on someone who can actually put the ball in the net. And just 8 minutes into being subbed on, Dennis Undav makes an instant impact and it's 1-1. But Ivory Coast, who have now stripped Ecuador of their dark horse title, aren't done dealing damage. It's Simon Adingra with loads of space.
Why did he take a touch?
Well, if one of your players having money on this game wasn't bad enough, Dennis Undav in the 3rd minute of stoppage time would break Ivorian hearts as Germany win 2-1 and confirm a spot into the knockouts. Later was Ecuador vs Curacao, a chance for the so-called dark horses to finally get things running. Here's the thing about being a so-called dark horse though. You need someone who can put the ball in the net. Ecuador still didn't have that. While Enner Valencia was actively torturing Ecuadorians, Curaçao's keeper, Eloy Room, must have had the goalkeeper superpowers transferred to him. Throughout the entire match, he protected the net like a US politician protecting pedophiles. 15 saves total. And just like that, a phenomenal goalkeeper display helps Curaçao make history, collecting their first points ever in the World Cup. Meanwhile, Ecuador's players produce an even more embarrassing result and completely shit the bed again.
You can't fool us anymore, Mason Mounts.
Into Group F, which is just way too early to call right now. Sweden currently hold the top spot after their win versus Tunisia, while sharing a point each are Japan and the Netherlands. For this match day, Sweden's crown would be tested with a game versus the Dutch. And again, I cannot stress how much a 5-1 win versus Tunisia doesn't really say much. Because guess what, Swedes? You still didn't deserve to be in this World Cup. Either way though, this was exactly the type of morale boost the Netherlands needed as they go top of the table now, and Gakpo, you will not be getting any weird AI love stories written about you tonight. After sacking their coach only a single game into the tournament, Tunisia quickly moved to hire Africa and Asia's all reliable Hervé Renard. While at first glance the Frenchman looks like someone who would be racist towards some black people on the beaches of Marseille, don't be fooled. This man has won the African Cup of Nations with Zambia, and he also was behind Saudi Arabia's win versus eventual champions Argentina back in 2022. Unfortunately though, not even Hervé Renard can save this shit show. In the World Cup's 1000th game, Japan treated the Tunisians like they were Chinese people in 1933. The Japanese put 4 past the Tunisians, and they made that shit look effortless. Just by associating himself with this team, Hervé's lost some of his aura, and he probably shot some of the players because of it. And so with that result, Japan move up to second and are tied with the Dutch on points, while Tunisia are officially Group G, just like Group B, had all teams sharing 1 point each, but hey, New Zealand's technically leading, I guess. As the last remaining shouts of "look out for Belgium" were being belched out, the national team was hit by a bombshell in the form of their key player leaving because his wife was expecting. However, things were about to go from bad to worse, as again the Belgian defense was stunned early on. Fortunately, having a fat ass is apparently illegal now. However, the Belgians finally went to work after this, but then they were met by the unstoppable force of, who the fuck is that?
That's Berenvans?
And thanks to yet another goalkeeping masterclass and also the Belgians fucking themselves with the red card later on, Iran grabbed themselves a huge point. And the claims of a trophy that was promised to Belgium 12 years ago ain't looking good, because these motherfuckers are fumbling the easiest group they could have possibly gotten. On to the other match in Group G, and again New Zealand are the first to score. By the way, this goal was assisted by Tim Payne, a guy who has gained millions of followers ever since an Argentinian influencer wanted to make the least followed player in the World Cup famous. Also during this match, DoorDash was tweeting about Tim Payne's every action while tagging him, but they were actually tagging music producer T-Pain. T-Pain found this funny, but eventually kinda got annoyed after like the 15th tweet. Now what if I told you that was all an ad? Dude, I'm so fucking done with these undisclosed ads. Like, stop ambushing us. This shit is literally illegal. Anyways, after New Zealand scored, according to Prize Picks Live, in the second half, Egypt finally woke up from its slumber and scored 3 unanswered to turn it all around and win their first World Cup game ever. Group H was also seeing everyone sharing the points, but things were about to change now that Lamine Yamal was officially back starting for the Spanish. Against Saudi Arabia, it took just 10 minutes for him to score his first of many in this tournament. But as I said before, his presence on the wing means more than just that, as Spain's attack looked significantly better. The Spanish went on to easily win 4-0 and finally looked like the contenders everyone expected them to be. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia once more remind us that in the World Cup, they get one good game and then play like Brunei after. After his heroic display versus Spain, Vosinha expressed sadness about his mother not being in the stands to watch him because of the US's dumbass rules. Anyways, after enough uproar was made, the US didn't want the image of their hosting soiled, so they brought Vosinha's mother over without any hesitation. Many were wondering if Cape Verde was just gonna be a once-in-a-lifetime miracle story, only for reality to hit the very next day. However, the Blue Sharks had other ideas, and in the 21st minute they made even more history, scoring their first ever World Cup goal. Sadly, however, it appeared that Vosinha had to actually trade something away to have his mother be in the stands, as he just kinda lost his abilities. Or maybe that was reality just finally hitting Cape Verde like a truck, as they conceded a second goal right before halftime. But I guess we may all have not been aware that Uruguay invested in SpaceX brain chips for their defenders, because what the fuck is any of this? In the end, Group H sees its third draw, a 4-goal thriller that leaves the runners-up spot still up for grabs. After matchday 1 in Group J, reigning champions Argentina hold on to the top spot with Austria just behind them, and these two would play each other on matchday 2. 3 minutes played, Argentina are awarded a penalty, and with this goal, Messi becomes the all-time 38 minutes played, Argentina are moving like they're about to annex Austria. Medina pulls it back. It's the classic dummy move for Messi! And with that goal, Lionel Messi becomes the all-time leading World Cup scorer. Now fast forward to the last minute of stoppage time, Messi is trying for a 19th goal, and he will not be denied. It's another win for La Albiceleste, and they book a ticket to the next round. Jordan versus Algeria now. Both teams were looking to get their first win to still have a chance at advancing. The Jordanians knew the odds were against them, so they once more consulted someone for advice.
Use the entirety of your children's college funds on slots.
It does absolutely nothing to motivate them, as instead they accidentally pull the classic Argentina Messi pullback and take the lead in the 35th minute. In the second half, however, Algeria would rally back from behind through 2 goals, both from corners. And just like that, Algeria are still alive, while Jordan are officially eliminated from the tournament. To begin match day 2, France would play Iraq, and look at the time here, it may be early, but it is currently demon time, as Mbappe makes a statement and lashes that shit into the net. He's just unstoppable right now. Oh, looks like the hydration break came early. Alright, that's enough water. That's enough! After a few hours of delay due to high winds, we finally returned, and France would bag 2 more to win 3-0 and confirm a spot into the knockouts. Norway vs Senegal was later, and god, don't you just love the World Cup? Even before any action occurred, Norway was hit with an injury to wingback Julian Ryerson in the 11th minute. In his place came Marcus Peterson, and that might have been a blessing in disguise, as he draws first blood for the Norwegians. People knew to look out for Norway, but I don't think most people saw them looking this good against a team like Senegal this early on. But if it's one thing Erling and co have been loving during this road to the World Cup, it's putting every single doubter in the dirt and beating Israel. 47 minutes played, 2-0, Holland's got 3 total now. However, you cannot doubt Senegal either, and Ismaila Sarr gives his country a needed lifeline to get back into this one. Not on the Cannibals' watch though. Erling treats every defender around him like lifeless prey, and ferociously destroys any and all hope for Captain Epstein and his ship. Senegal would get one more right at the end, but it wouldn't be enough as Norway keep rowing through the contest like nothing and officially confirm a spot into the knockouts. Group K was a bit more interesting to start, with Colombia top while DR Congo and Portugal were both on 1 point each. Now, while Portugal's dressing room was at risk of imploding, AO3 was booming. Portugal were in desperation mode basically already. They needed something positive versus Uzbekistan just so they could get their minds off of literally everything else. Uzbek fans weren't here to play though, as they came out riding horses to the game, and their countrymen went on to lose 5-0. And hey, you know, Cristiano Ronaldo started this game and did score. He scored twice actually. Checkmate, Messi.
Goal from Kusanov.
Meanwhile, in Mexico, against a formidable goalkeeping performance from Lionel Mpasi, it took until the 76th minute for Colombia to make a breakthrough, and a Crystal Palace player now has 2 goals for Colombia in the World Cup. In the end, it was just the 1 goal to decide this one, and Colombia remain at the top of the table with their last game being versus Portugal. This was a tough result for the Congolese to swallow, but on the bright side, the Lumumba Vea statue was finally in North America after dealing with the visa issues. Finally into our last group, where England and Ghana both had 3 points. These two would face each other to start match day 2. But before any ball was kicked, English fans coming to Boston did what they do best: sing about quite literally everyone else besides themselves. On the other side though, a Ghanaian witch doctor decided to put a curse on Harry Kane. And it worked! England were really underwhelming in this game. It was kind of like watching Spain try to break through Cape Verde again. Not to mention, they got really lucky this wasn't called a penalty. Honestly, I have no idea how it wasn't. But even more credit to Ghana and their incredible defensive performance that saw out a very impressive 0-0 draw. Many didn't even think the Black Stars would escape this group, but no matter the quality, you can never underestimate Ghana in a World Cup. In the other fixture, Croatia managed a really sloppy 1-0 win versus an almost dull Panamanian side. But with their second straight loss, Panama is officially out of the World Cup. Into the last set of matches for the group stages, and we begin with Group B. Canada currently hold the lead through goal difference after their stat pad session versus Qatar. Right behind them is the Swiss, who are their last opponents. Winner of that match determines who finishes top of the group. Meanwhile, just barely alive are both Bosnia and Qatar with 1 point each. After Qatar's demoralizing result versus Canada, the team was in need of some uplifting, so the Federation made this AI anime slot promo.
Come on,
On the other hand, Bosnia's Kerim Alibegovic was producing something AI could never even replicate, and he puts the cherry on top of a magnificent solo run. Bosnia would go on to win this one 3-1, and they become the first third-place team to officially advance to the knockouts. Over in Vancouver, for the battle for first, those 2 Swiss game changers from the previous game would each start and make their mark once again. Ruben Vargas scored just a minute into the second half, but then Johan Manzambi pretty much put the dagger in this one. Canada would manage to get one back from a guy who played in Estonia 2 years ago, but in the end, the Swiss snatched Group B from the hands of Tim Hortons land. By the way, this also means Canada are no longer hosts going into the knockouts. Now, some people say it's because of their performances in the group. I beg to differ. It's punishment for whatever the fuck this is. Group C next. With 1 game remaining for everyone, Brazil held the lead due to their better goal difference, with Morocco breathing down their necks in second. Then you had Scotland in their eternal 3rd place spot. They can also make it to the knockouts just as long as they don't get battered. That'd be tough though, as their last game was against a Brazilian side trying to win by as much as possible to maintain first. However, weeks before this game was to even be played, a Brazilian psychic was saying that during the match, a giant alien spaceship would arrive to abduct thousands. It didn't happen, but I wish it did, because what the fuck, Scotland? I get it, okay? We've not looked good, right? Our team is very old, so, you know, they're very slow, and, you know, this is also like the 5th time we've played Brazil in a World Cup. I get it. But you just laid there and let Brazil just fucking plow our asses. You saw this quote before every time you put on the shirt, and you spat on it like nothing. Please, Just never come back. Scotland, I don't want to see you in a World Cup again for another 28 years. Scotland still do have a chance to advance to the knockouts, but they need like 8 different things to go their way. And to be honest, it's better that way. We do not need to see this team anymore. Anyways, the other game was Morocco versus Haiti, and for the Moroccans to win the group, they need to win by like 6+ goals. However, despite the Haitians being eliminated, they still played with more pride than Scotland and stunned the Moroccans just 10 minutes in. Morocco, though, would quickly respond with a goal of their own in the 38th minute. But Haiti wasn't done, as Wilson Isidore scores an absolute screamer, and the Haitians retake the lead in the 43rd. 3 minutes later, though, and Morocco respond once more. Into the second half, with things a little more calm, Morocco then grabbed the lead for the first time on the night with less than 15 minutes left, and then bag another to put an end to this absolute classic. And Haiti can leave the tournament so damn proud of what they've accomplished since the very beginning of this journey in spite of all the hardships they've faced back home. Mexico already had Group A won, but everything else was still very much up for grabs. But for now at least, South Korea held on to the runners-up spot. And in order for either Czechia or South Africa to advance to the last 32, they'd have to win their games. South Africa still had to play a South Korean team still in need of results to confirm a place in the knockouts. On the other hand, Czechia had a more favorable matchup against a Mexican side with not as much to play for. But we're getting a little too ahead of ourselves here, because that's assuming Czechia can play any form of respectable football, which they can't. They conceded in the 55th minute and then again 6 minutes later. Meanwhile, in the other game, most believed this was South Korea's for the taking, but South Africa have been evolving behind the scenes while South Korea was looking terrible. And in the 63rd minute, the Pelo Maseko turns this group on its head as South Korea hop over the Koreans into second place. And with how bad the Koreans have been all night, they have zero answer for this, and at the final whistle, Bafana make what seemed impossible after their opening match a euphoric reality. Now, it's not over for South Korea just yet. They still have a chance of advancing, but their head coach is most definitely not going to be welcome back in the country anymore. They're going to send that motherfucker to the Squid Games. His performances, especially in this game, were so bad that a journalist asked if the squad had food poisoning, because otherwise, this performance made 0 sense. On top of all this, by the way, South Korea fumbled a knockout stage match in Korean-American heavy LA. They basically lost out on what would have been a home game in the last 32. But what were we even expecting? This federation has been on the downfall. I mean, this team drew to Malaysia only 2 years ago, and the federation's technical director once said this:
Gangnam Style, it's about to create a Korean style.
After their 2-1 comeback victory versus the Ivorians, Germany won Group B. It's the first time they'll be seeing the knockout since the World Cup final back in 2014. I'm being dead serious. In second place was one of the surprises of this tournament so far, Ivory Coast. And they kept that spot after a brace from Nicolas Pepe versus Curaçao, and with that result, Ivory Coast advances to the knockouts for the first time in their history. So that leaves us with third place Ecuador, who can only advance to the next round if they beat Germany. And considering how disappointing they were throughout their first 2 games, hopes weren't high. In fact, Ecuador's campaign has been so hopeless that it literally drove fans into a civil war in the middle of Times Square. And into the game, it took less than 2 minutes for Ecuador to let Leroy Sané score. At that point, I'd just kill myself. But then, minutes later, the unthinkable happens. Ecuador score a goal. And at long last, Ecuador was back, baby. Their attack may still be pretty shit, but the spirit that disappeared throughout the first 2 games had been awakened like a 29-year-old striker on the last year of his contract. And eventually it pays off in the 77th minute as Gonzalo Plata sends a header from a corner into the net, and Ecuador, who were on the verge of elimination, just a nose hair away from embarrassment, against all odds are moving on to the knockouts for the first time since 2006. Group F's winner would basically be decided by who was playing Tunisia next. Well, that'd be the Netherlands, so congrats to the Dutch.
Into the middle, headed down, and they've got it! Tunisia has scored!
So now it all came down to the battle for second between Japan and Sweden, and in Japan's back corner was the unlikeliest of allies, South Korea, who would advance to the knockouts if the Japanese won by 2 or more goals.
Just tell me,
After a pretty uneventful first half, the Japanese would put together an absolute work of art, with Daisen Maeda putting the finishing touch on it. This ain't Blue Lock, that Aowashi shit! However, just 6 minutes later in the 62nd minute, Sweden's Anthony Elanga responds with a brilliant curler from outside the box. Momentum then quickly shifted all the way in the direction of the Swedes as they seek the winner to snatch second away. But no matter how hard they tried, Japan's Zion Suzuki was out here looking like US Customs seeing a Somali ref, and the Samurai Blue do just enough to hold on to second in Group B. This also means South Korea will have to wait longer to know their fate, while Sweden, with its 4 points, becomes the third nation to confirm a spot through the third place rankings. For the last match day in Group D, second place Australia and third place Paraguay would play against each other. But because they both had 3 points, it would actually work in their favor to just get a draw. So the two had a little kickabout, and that was that.
Has he blown the whistle? Yeah. Yes! Come on! Well done, Arsenal!
This officially sees Australia advance as runners-up, while Paraguay are all but certain to make it to the knockouts in third. Good comeback from them. Group winners USA's last match was against Turkey, who were already eliminated, so this match didn't really mean much, and the Americans made 9 changes going into this game. Not that it really make a difference, we could have put Joe Biden in net and the Turks still wouldn't be able to score. Hey Arda, goal is here. No, actually here. Oh, sorry, that's the crowd again. It's over here. Ah, too slow. Okay, fair enough. Into the second day of match day 3, and we start all the way with Group I. I genuinely can't stand this shit. With both first and second already claimed by France and Norway, Senegal and Iraq would battle each other for a chance at the spot in the knockouts. And Senegal would be the ones to win this fixture, but more importantly, they wiped the floor with Iraq. 3 points wasn't necessarily going to cut it to advance, but having taken their goal difference from -3 to +2, it's looking a little bit better for the Senegalese. This result also kicked Scotland out of the top 8 in third place ranking, so basically they're out. Thank fuck. Despite France and Norway being on the same amount of points, Norway opted to just give the French Group I, because that meant the Norwegians would be playing Ivory Coast instead of Germany in the last 32.
Holland not playing?
What is he saying?
They saying Holland not playing.
Bro, he not here.
We ain't playing, bro.
It's my money and I need it now!
It's my money and I need it now!
It's my money and I need it now!
Going into the last match day, everyone is still alive in Group H, with Spain currently on top. 2 points behind them are both Uruguay and Cape Verde, who played out a 2-2 draw in their last outing against each other. Then you have 4th place Saudi Arabia just holding on with a single point. First place Spain versus 2nd place Uruguay would be one of the last fixtures, and that's why you don't play an 80-year-old Fernando Muslera. This was especially bad news for the Uruguayans because in the other fixture, a goal hadn't been scored yet. So as things stand now, Cape Verde is in second and Uruguay are at risk of elimination. But with how little chemistry this Uruguayan side had, they kind of just gave up and opted to just try and kill every single Spanish player. Also, what the hell was Agustin Canobio's problem? Was he drunk? Did one of the opposing players sleep with his wife? Is he stupid or something? Going back to the other game, Cape Verde were close to scoring against a weirdly passive Saudi Arabian side. In the end though, the match ends 0-0, but with Uruguay bowing out versus Spain, that single point for Cape Verde was enough for them to make even more history as the smallest nation to advance to the knockouts. Uruguay's second straight group stage elimination also means Paraguay officially book a spot in the last 32. It also means Ghana are officially confirmed a spot in the knockouts. You hate to see it for Uruguay's best keeper of the last decade. Group G was a similar situation. Everyone's still alive, but the winner of the group at the end of this match day could be any of the current top 3. For Egypt to win the group, a win versus Iran seals the deal. Iran can take Group G by beating Egypt and seeing Belgium draw or lose. If Belgium win though, Iran needs to win by a score that ties or beats out Belgium's goal difference. For the country who had hopes of a run to the final promised to them 12 years ago, their best chance of winning the group requires a win versus New Zealand and a tie in the other game. Belgium going into the last match day had scored just 1 goal, and it was an own goal. That all said, they managed to get out of their scoring rut, putting 5 past New Zealand, so the Belgians had done their job. for once. Over to Egypt-Iran now, and it took less than 5 minutes for the Pharaohs to find the back of the net and have a strong hold of Group G's top spot. Dreams are quickly foiled though after they gave away a penalty. Iran's Mehdi Taremi steps up, and that's a terrible penalty. But Iran has gone through a lot more shit than a simple penalty miss. They immediately regroup, and it's Ramin Rezayan with an equalizer in the 13th minute. As it stands now, Belgium will win Group B, Egypt will finish second, Iran third. Then, all the way into the 2nd minute of stoppage time, Iran seeking a winner to advance to the knockouts here. Egypt's keeper makes a mess of the free kick. Shot is saved, but then it falls to Shojai Khalilzadeh, and Iran's players, who have had to go through so much bullshit since the beginning of this tournament. Relocation, exhausting flights, the dumbest questions imaginable. All the while their people are being bombed back home, have finally advanced to the World Cup knockout stage for the first time in this nation's history.
Iran scored the goal from offside position. Final decision, offside.
There's no way, bro. First the BBL, now this?
He could only have gotten that idea from Benjamin Netanyahu.
So after a chaotic end to match day 3, Belgium win Group G while Egypt advanced to the knockouts for the first time ever. Iran are still alive for now, but will need some results to go in their favor. By the way, because Belgium won and Iran could only get a draw, Senegal are officially confirmed for the last 32. Right, now that there's only one more day left of group stage games, let's take a look at the 3rd place rankings right now. So far, we got 5 teams confirmed for the last 32 in Sweden, Ecuador, Bosnia, Paraguay, and Senegal. Iran will hope for other results to go their way, Croatia still need to play Ghana, and South Korea, it ain't looking good. The Koreans needed just 3 outcomes to go in their favor, and so far, none of them have. To stay alive, they need the last remaining group outcomes to happen. Ghana needs to beat Croatia, which is possible, but they're already confirmed for the knockouts, so I'm not sure they'll really be trying that hard. Then, Austria need to beat Algeria. That is possible. It depends on how much these teams hate each other, because if they just work together, they're both in. And then they need one more outcome. This is the last one, by the way, so if this doesn't happen, they're fucked. They need Uzbekistan to beat DR Congo. Yeah, they're fucked. Oh, by the way, Scotland is still alive, somehow, but I think the only way they possibly make it to the next round is if they invade Cape Verde. Group L was currently England's for the taking due to a slightly better goal difference than Ghana. By the way, as mentioned before, Ghana with their 4 points have already confirmed the spot in the knockouts. Whether that was through 2nd or 3rd was still to be determined though, with their next match being against Croatia. Half an hour played, Peter Sucic from way out sends a laser into the bottom corner. 1-0 Croatia. Fast forward to the 72nd though, Ghana free kick meets the head of Derek Lucasen, who in just his 2nd cap scores to make it 1-1. 10 minutes later though, Croatia's Nikola Vlasic scores the winner to take Croatia up to the runners-up spot, while Ghana will advance through 3rd. With Croatia's win as well, Scotland are finally taken out of their misery. On the other hand, England could seal the group with a win versus Panama. But hold on, Maxwell. Wasn't a curse put on Harry Kane by that Ghanaian witch doctor? You would be right, but the witch doctor lifted the curse immediately after his nation earned a point off England. How nice of him. I don't mean to question the Ghanaian witch doctor here, but I don't think the curse exactly disappeared. It's off Harry Kane, don't get me wrong. I just think it might have affected the rest of the team. England managed a 2-0 win, but my good lord, they were horrendous in this game. Either way, they got the result they needed, and the result gave them Group L. Meanwhile, Panama, who saw some of its players fight in a training session before this match, became the only team to go without scoring throughout the whole tournament. Group K saw Colombia confirm a spot in the last 32, but first place was still up for grabs with Portugal just behind them. And lucky us, it was going to be decided by the most anticipated game of the group stage. Colombia versus Portugal. And thankfully, my fears of this being boring didn't come true, as this game was absolutely electric. The first 20 minutes, it was all Colombia, as constant storms of iconic yellow and blue bombarded Portugal's defense, but to no avail. Then it was Portugal's turn. It's Bruno Fernandes with time and space, but he can't direct it anywhere but straight at the keeper. However, here come Portugal again. It's Joao Felix now, but he can't keep the shot down. Into the second half, Los Cafeteros on the break. Arias pulls it back in the middle to an open man, but somehow that hasn't hit the back of the net. Nonetheless, Colombia continue their onslaught. Every attack it feels like they're getting that bit closer to the breakthrough, but always in the way is this Portuguese defense putting their lives on the line. But it'd be a crime to blue ball this ocean of yellow in the stands, and Davison Sanchez in the 90th minute sends this little Medellin into a frenzy.
Okay, this is just getting ridiculous now.
With the goal disallowed because God hates us all, the game would end 0-0, but this was one of the best 0-0s we've seen in a while. Then we had the other fixture that was just as important, DR Congo versus Uzbekistan. On just 1 point right now, it's really simple for the Congolese. Win, and you're in. They already did the hard work, got past Colombia, only lost 1-0 to them, and then also drew with Portugal, so now they just needed to finish the job. However, Uzbekistan had other ideas. Eldor Shomurodov catches the Congolese keeper off his line, and Uzbekistan stunned DR Congo early on. As it stands, the Leopards are going out while Uzbekistan is practically carrying the hopes of two Asian nations on its back. But having faced so much adversity in qualifying for this tournament, the Congolese weren't just gonna stand down. They win a penalty, and Yohan Wissa equalizes in the 67th minute. There is still hope. 77 minutes played, DR Congo are hungry, Uzbekistan are being backed in a corner, and a deflection falls to Fiston Mayele, and the Congolese come back from 1-0 down in just 10 minutes.
And he can keep it moving. Wissa.
And it is absolute heartbreak for the Koreans, who needed just 3 outcomes out of a possible 9 to advance, and they saw none go their way. And then we finally have Group J. Argentina had already won the group, they'd beat Jordan pretty easily 3-1 and earned 9 of 9 points. The only other nations to pull that off are France and Mexico. So it all came down to Algeria versus Austria, and Iran would be watching very closely because they needed someone to win this fixture. Because a draw between the two would eliminate the Iranians, and unfortunately for them, that was by far the most favorable result for Austria and Algeria. But even though that would see both teams go through and Algeria would have a slightly easier opponent, it's just not that simple. Because, you see, these nations fucking hate each other. The year is 1982. Algeria, in their first ever World Cup match, have just defeated 2-time champs West Germany in one of the biggest upsets in the tournament's history. A few days later, they lost to Austria, but then grabbed another impressive win versus the Chileans. With that result, that had them second with all group games played. One issue though, West Germany versus Austria hadn't played yet. That was happening the next day. In the match, Germany scored early versus the Austrians, and then both teams basically defended the lead because they would advance, at the expense of Algeria. This blatant collusion was known as the Disgrace of Gijón, and is also why the last group games are played at the same time now. Since that day, these two nations haven't met, so you can only imagine truly how much tension is built up. 28 minutes played, Austria opts for FIFA 15 tactics with a ball over the top, and of course it had to be the guy with the most hate in his heart in general to open the score. As it stands now, Austria and Iran are in, Algeria is out. But into the 43rd minute, ball hits the corner flag, Mahrez tries to reach out, but an Austrian defender is holding onto his leg for dear life, so instead Belgali collects it, has a shot, it's blocked, but falls right back to him. He then ball rolls past 2 defenders and blasts an equalizer for Algeria. Early into the second half though, Konrad Leimer on the flank drops it back beautifully to Marcel Sabitzer in the middle, and Austria are back in the lead. However, 5 minutes later, Houssam Aouar beats his defender, then slides it to Riyad Mahrez, making a late run, and the Algerians respond again. Fellas, please, you both go through if you tie. And it appeared that both teams finally listened to logic. Algeria proceeded to calm things down and just pass it around the back during stoppage time. But that was a trick. With the Austrians feeling a false sense of security, the Algerians quickly moved the ball to Mahrez, who scores the winner with just 2 minutes of stoppage time remaining. Algeria had so much hate for this country that they gave up a match versus the Swiss and now will play Spain. Are you sure about this? But as I said before, a win for either team means Iran are officially into the World Cup knockouts. But Austria, now on the brink of elimination, aren't done. A Hail Mary of a cross nearly falls out of bounds, but it's headed across to substitute Sasha Kaladzic, who with his first touch saves Austria right at the death. After by far the best game of the tournament so far, and one we had to wait until the very last game by the way, Austria advance as runners-up, and Algeria eliminate Iran to become the last third-place team to qualify. Oh my god. And so with the end of the group stages, we are now on to the knockouts. And we have some very exciting matchups. So let's go check them out. On one side of the bracket, you got Germany versus Paraguay, France versus Sweden, South Africa versus Canada, Netherlands versus Morocco, Portugal versus Croatia, Spain versus Austria, USA versus Bosnia, and Belgium versus Senegal. There are so many heavyweights on this side, which means on the other side, there's a lot more wild cards. Brazil versus Japan, Captain Tsubasa-ass match. Ivory Coast vs Norway. Mexico vs Ecuador. Jackson Heights might never be the same again. England vs DR Congo. Argentina vs Cape Verde. Australia vs Egypt. Switzerland vs Algeria. And finally, Ghana vs Colombia. My good lord. I can't wait for these games to happen.
And one thing about Bosnia, I could not point out where it is on a map. I don't know the first thing about Bosnia, and I don't want to know.
Oh, for fuck's sake. We begin the last 32 with the match between Canada and South Africa in not Canada, because these guys dropped the ball in the group stages. Canada dominated this match, but in classic Maple Merchant fashion, Justin Trudeau with black paint in his eyes could finish better than this whole team. Eventually though, the Canadians would finally put the ball in the net through a brilliant last-minute half volley from Stephen Eustachio. And just like that, Canada become the first of the three hosts to move on to the next round. It's also their first knockout win ever. However, a few weeks following this game, tragedy struck with the death of South Africa's Jaden Adams. Prior to his passing, Adams had been fighting through some terrible losses throughout the last few years. 3 years ago, the life of a close friend was taken from him, and then just a day before he was to play Czechia, his grandma died. Adams was always a fighter though. Born in Klutzville, an area of Stellenbosch plagued by drug abuse and gang violence due to the lingering effects of apartheid, he overcame it all to become the first academy graduate to sign a professional contract with his local club. There, he helped his team win a domestic cup, and eventually he made the move to one of Africa's most prestigious clubs, Mamelodi Sundowns. In his first season with the club, Adams won the league, which he would dedicate to his late friend. He'd also helped the club win its first CAF Champions League in almost a decade. Jaden Adams was just 25 years old. Over 2 decades ago in the anime series Captain Tsubasa, Japan and Brazil faced each other in the 2002 World Cup final. And finally, this matchup would become reality, with the two facing against each other in an early heavyweight battle for a spot in the last 16. And for someone who loves the series like Neymar, this was like a dream come true. Only thing is, it would also be a dream as he'd sit on the bench the entire game.
Atrás da linha da bola, Neymar. Pra não ficar impedido. Agora vem cachorrão. Vai carregando, tocou pro Neymar. Gol! No gol!
Ah, para.
O árbitro dá impedimento do Neymar. E o Neymar puxou uma arma. O Neymar puxou uma arma.
Early on, the Japanese looked significantly better, with their brilliant passing play shredding through Brazil's midfield. And it didn't take long for Japan to stun the 5-time champs early on through... Could it not have been quite literally anyone else, man? Into the second half, however, Brazil finally remembered they were playing football, and after some close chances of their own, they equalized in the 56th minute. Taking note of this, Hajime Moriyasu looked to his bench in hopes of shifting the momentum Japan's way again. So he subbed off 3 attackers and put on 2 defenders. For fuck's sake, not again, man. See, to most people, this is just Death Note, man. But to the entirety of Asia, this is the biggest bottler in international football, and it's not even close. With Japan self-sabotaging, again, they invite Brazil into the game like they're me letting a crackhead into my car at a Waffle House in 2022. Brooklyn's own Zion Suzuki tries all he can, but even the superhuman arc he was going through wouldn't be enough as Gabriel Martinelli scores in the dying minutes to help Brazil just escape to the next round. Germany vs Paraguay. This is Germany's first knockout game since 2014. Their next task was seeking a first win since that final, but Germany found themselves struggling to break down Professor Alfaro's terrorism ball. Meanwhile, the Germans fall asleep in the back, leaving Paraguay's star player wide open, and the Professor's vision is all going to plan. Reality tends to budge down the door in the second half though. This time it's Kai Havertz equalizing just 9 minutes in. So now no longer chasing the game, Germany returned to their original task, but again, Paraguay's defense with all their might were not giving into the Utopia's demands. But eventually, after 90 different corners, the Germans finally got it right through Jonathan Tah in extra time. But it's called back for a foul. So with nothing to separate the two after 120 minutes, this would go down to our first penalty shootout of the tournament. But listen, as hard as Paraguay has fought throughout this game, it was time to kiss their hopes goodbye. Because for all of human history, Germans have been known for one thing: efficiency in their penalties. We're never beating the allegations. Mauricio, on the other hand, makes no mistake, so it's advantage Paraguay. The next 2 sets of penalties would then be converted by both teams. But then the Germans failed to score again. Are we sure these guys aren't just Englishmen in disguise? And now, all of a sudden, here's the opportunity for Paraguay to send shockwaves throughout the tournament. Nadim Amiri keeps the Germans alive with their 5th penalty, but it's still a 1-goal advantage for Paraguay. So now it all comes down to Fabian Balbuena to send shockwaves throughout the oh my fucking god. And just like that, the Paraguayans have fumbled a 2-goal advantage, so we go into sudden death now. Okay, Paraguay, tranquilo. Jose Canale could make history right here, right now.
Ahora sí, ahora sí, ahora sí, el gol de tu vida, Canale.
Netherlands vs Morocco was later at night, and this game would be more important to Moroccans than most people actually knew. Because in the Netherlands, Moroccans make up the 2nd biggest diaspora in the whole country with 400,000 people. That's 2% of the Netherlands population. Morocco dominated throughout this match, creating a majority of the chances, but it would be the Dutch to steal the lead through Cody Gakpo with less than 20 minutes to play. But there was no way the Moroccans would let themselves be cheesed by a bunch of mediocre highlighters, and Issa Diop saves his nation from elimination in the 1st minute of stoppage time. Morocco would once more dominate throughout extra time, but to no avail. So, we go to penalties again. The Atlas Lions won 2 in the last edition, but were not off to a good start with their first attempt hitting the bar. Now it's Justin Kluivert to give the Orange an advantage, but he chokes on the Hesse. But no stress for the Dutch as Bart Verbruggen makes another save. Never mind. All level now, Weghorst smashes it top bins, Talby matches it with his own wonderful take. Next up, it's Quentin Timber, and he misses horribly. So up comes Ashraf Hakimi to give Morocco the advantage.
Ashraf Hakimi!
Onto the last attempt before sudden death for both teams. It's Somerville for the Dutch, and what the fuck was that penalty, man? This is actually one of the worst penalty shootouts I've ever seen. Siberia, please just end the suffering. Thank you. The next day, we witnessed Norway vs Ivory Coast, a real battle of the wildcards. 38 minutes played, Norway's Antonio Nusa smells blood and curls it beautifully into the net. 1-0 Norway. Later into the second half though, Ivory Coast Amad Diallo plays the 1-2 into the box, flows past some defenders, and puts the cherry on top. But here comes Norway again in the 85th minute. Oscar Bob sends a killer pass to Patrick Berg. He then somehow threads the ball between 3 oncoming defenders to a wide-open Erling Haaland, and Norway win their first knockout game in any tournament since the Nazis in 1938. They now have a day in the last 16 with Brazil. A couple hours later, we witnessed the French just demoralize Sweden. Les Bleus were an unstoppable machine, while Sweden's defense were so dog shit you had Gyok make it the last tackle to stop Mbappe. France went on to win this one 3-0, and Mbappe becomes the all-time leading scorer in the World Cup knockout stage. The next opponents will be Paraguay. On the night before the Junction Boulevard derby between Mexico and Ecuador, Mexican fans were outside the Ecuadorians' hotel making as much noise as physically possible to keep them from sleeping. It got to a point that the Ecuadorian FA actually filed a complaint to FIFA about this. Now, many expected this to be a real feisty one. I mean, there was an argument less than 20 minutes in, but only one team really showed up that night, and that was Mexico.
In the post-game interview, which is you play with these guys.
21 minutes played, Julian Quinones finds himself in behind the opposition's defense, and he's just automatic with it. 9 minutes later, it's El Lobo's turn, and Mexico are up 2-0 thanks to some clinical strikes. Ecuador basically ran out of ideas about 10 minutes into the game, so Mexico would go on to cruise to a 2-0 victory to move on to the next round. This also marks the end of the 4-game curse that has haunted the Mexicans since 1986. But I'm gonna be real, I'm not counting anything until they make it to the quarters. The following day gave way to England vs DR Congo, and in just 7 minutes, the Congolese stunned the English. Having now angered the beast, the Congolese would now have to bear the seemingly never-ending onslaught of English attacks. Fortunately though, their keeper Lionel Mpasi was playing out of his goddamn mind. it. And now here come the Congolese again. They've basically had free will on the flanks. Wan-Bissaka finds Wissa in the box, and he hits the post. Oh, that really should have been 2-0, man. Into the second half, Mpasi is still playing like he's being guided by the spirit of Ochoa. But not even higher beings can save you if your defense is made of tissue paper, and Harry Kane finally finds that long-awaited equalizer in the 75th. Then in the 86th, with the Congolese absolutely gassed, Harry Kane says fuck it, net somewhere, and England come back from 1-0 down to win 2-1, and advance to the next round, where they will play Mexico at the Azteca. Belgium vs Senegal followed later in the day, and for this game, I decided to go to a Senegalese church that was hosting a watch party. And what a place to watch this Senegalese masterclass unfold, as the Lions of Teranga went up 2-0 against the Frauds of Belgium after just 50 minutes played. Nothing but good vibes, and by this point we were indulging in some delicious Senegalese cuisine. I still think about this couscous and onion tomato salad to this day, bro. But just as the party for the last 16 appearance was beginning, Belgium made some substitutions, to which Senegal had no answers for. And the Belgians started looking actually dangerous for the first time since like 2021. However, the Senegalese are still holding strong, but most importantly, sitting comfortably with a 2-0 lead. Oh no. I get it now. I knew that curse wasn't gone all along. You just wanted to distract us all from your true intention, to harm all your African brothers and sisters. I know who you really are. Shang Tsung! After that heartbreaker, I did my walk of shame back to the station and met up with a friend downtown to watch the US-Bosnia game. Was there good food here? No. Were the vibes at least good? No. This bar fucking sucks. It took a bit for the host to find any rhythm against a really physical Bosnian side, but in the end, the Americans scratched by with a 2-0 victory. The Stars and Stripes will now host Belgium in a last 16 rematch of 2014. The US will, however, be without their top scorer Folarin Balogun due to a red card suspension, which is a big hit to their hopes.
How do you say dos a cero in Bosnia? Give me Belgium right now. Give me those fucking frauds.
Also, people will say this is the US's first knockout win since 2002. I'm sorry, but I'm not counting the last 32 with this drought. The next day, we saw Spain versus Austria.
La diversión ya comenzó. Minions y Monsters. La nueva película de tus traviesos favoritos disponible ahora solo en cines.
The Spanish put together the most dominating performance of their campaign with a 3-0 win versus the Austrians. And Mikel Oyarzabal, with his 2 goals in this game, now has a total of 4 after a disastrous start to his time in the States. Portugal versus Croatia, a match with so much star power on display, but of course no one stood out as much as the Portuguese sensation himself, Rabona TV. Portugal controlled all of the first half, but it would be a second half Croatian strike from 90-year-old Ivan Perisic to break the deadlock in this one. Clinical as can be, Croatia would then seal the deal just 3 minutes later. However, the goal is offside. Then 63 minutes played over on the other side of the pitch, Portugal win themselves a penalty and Cristiano Ronaldo scores his first ever World Cup knockout stage goal at the young age of 41. However, Croatia wouldn't let this mistake faze them. They resumed their rhythm and Sucic off a ball of dream slides at home, but it's also offside. 87 minutes played now. Croatia continue finding pockets of space in Portugal's defense. A cross finds Pasalic, and somehow this game is still tied. Into stoppage time, Portugal cooking something up here with Leao. He delivers it straight to the head of Gonçalo Ramos, and Portugal snatch victory away against the grain. But hold on, a Hail Mary is whipped in with all the conviction in the world. It finds Pasalic, who leaves it off to Josko Gvardiol, and Croatia saved themselves a
Croatia player number 20 touched the ball and headed to the goal scorer. Final decision, offside.
Okay, what the fuck could it possibly be now? Are we really using a fucking heart monitor? After that game, Switzerland vs Algeria would end off the night for us. Just 10 minutes in, Johan Manzambi plays with his food, scores it to Mbolo, and the Swiss are off to a fantastic start. Then 40 seconds into the next half, the Swiss put an early dagger in this one and advanced to the last 16. Australia vs Egypt started the last day of round of 32 fixtures, and it would be Imam Ashur drawing first blood for the Egyptians in the 13th minute. Then right at the beginning of the second half, Omar Marmoush gets in behind the defense, but he somehow doesn't get it on target. Egypt though would rue that missed opportunity, as just 9 minutes later, the Aussies level through an own goal. From there, nothing could separate the two, so it's another penalty shootout. First steps up Harry Sutar, a center back. Are we sure about this, guys? Egypt managed to convert there first, so it's advantaged them now. The next 2 sets of penalties will then be converted by both sides. It's 3-2 now. Next up steps Australia's Lucas Harrington, an 18-year-old center back. Yeah, that's gotta be child abuse. Cape Verde are currently on a bit of a Cinderella run after beating out Uruguay to advance as runners-up in their group. And for their triumph, their next opponents in the last 32 would be the reigning champions Argentina. Cape Verde, it was nice knowing you, but I suppose the football gods hate you or something. I don't know what it is. But then, with almost an hour played, Cape Verde do the unthinkable and equalize against Argentina. Shockwaves have been sent throughout the entire footballing scene, and now everyone is starting to tune in to see what the fuck just happened. We've seen this story countless times though, and it's ended the same way each time. But Cape Verde isn't everyone else. They got Messi, we got Vocinha. The 40-year-old keeper with 8 trillion IG followers awakens his final form and puts the whole nation on his back. And just like that, a game no one saw being even this close is now going into extra time. And just 2 minutes in, Argentina's leader says Mr. Licha Martinez, tear down this wall, and La Albiceleste have retaken the lead. However, in the 103rd minute, Sidney Lopez Cabral curls one from way out, and Cape Verde just refused to die. But into the 110th minute, corner for Argentina, and Messi delivers it straight to the head of Christian Romero. 3-2 Argentina. But you're probably thinking to yourself, Maxwell, there's no way Cape Verde do it a third time, right? Yeah, you'd be right. So after one of the best games of the whole tournament, in probably the least expected match for it to happen, Argentina prevail in a 5-goal thriller and will now face Egypt in the last 16. Finally, we had Colombia versus Ghana, and the Colombians would take an early lead through John Arias in the 14th minute. And that would be that, as the Ghanaians had quite literally no attack all game, and you guessed right, folks, it was because Andre Ayew is still playing a World Cup game in the year of our Lord 2026. Actually, not even just playing, starting. Colombia now move on to the last 16, where they will face up against the Swiss.
West Virginia, Mountain Mama.
We began the round of 16 with Canada vs Morocco, where surprisingly the Canadians were the better team throughout the first half. However, it only takes one slip up for a side like Morocco to make you pay, and they take the lead in the 50th minute. The Atlas Lions would go on to run away with this one 3-0 and become the first African nation to have 2 appearances in the quarters, which is kind of ironic because they usually don't associate themselves with being out. Then we had France vs Paraguay. The French were the biggest favorites at this point, miles better than Paraguay. And the professor was well aware of this. So he commenced stage 2 of his terrorism ball to combat France's flawlessness. Lawlessness. This wasn't even football anymore. This was just WWE. They were dirty, petty, and yet somehow were never booked even once. Every rule of respect in the game was disregarded, and sure, there are a bunch of cunts for it, but can you really blame them? This was about the only way they could overcome the most impossible utopia of them all. And hey, to their credit, it worked quite well. Up until the moment they gave up a penalty. And so comes the end of the Utopia Hunters as France win 1-0. Right at the final whistle, Paraguay's keeper Orlando Gil reached out to Mbappe for a handshake. Mbappe responded by ignoring it completely and choosing to instead celebrate right in front of his face. Entirely justified, by the way, but I kinda hate that it had to happen to the one guy that didn't violate 18 different Geneva Conventions on the pitch. This gesture, however, ended up grabbing the attention of Paraguayan Senator Celeste Amarilla, who would proceed to go on an unhinged rant that would remind us all that when South Americans get racist, they put up LeBron numbers almost effortlessly. Mbappe would not let this slide though, and my good lord, he absolutely destroyed her. Now, did Celeste apologize after this? No. She doubled down. I come from a generation where calling someone a black shit was common. Yeah, that's pretty bad. But then she threatened to sue him? The Paraguayan Senate eventually condemned her remarks as discriminatory. However, she is still in her position to this day. It somehow doesn't end there though. There's been even more racism throughout social media, and also somewhere in the country, they burned an Mbappe doll. All he did was ignore your keeper. What the fuck is wrong with all of y'all? Okay, but let me just stress this real quick, okay? I have a friend who is Paraguayan, who got a lot of hate from pretty much everywhere because of all these incidents. Not every single Paraguayan is this insane. Thank you. Norway vs Brazil, Holland vs Vinny. Considering how poor Seleção was vs Japan, people started forecasting an upset here. However, all of that disappeared within 10 minutes as Norway conceded a penalty. So up steps Vinicius. Huh? This guy's attempted 3 whole penalties in his entire career. What is he doing here? Okay, let's just wait before making any judgment. He's lucky we're not in PO12 right now. While Landon Donovan couldn't shut the fuck up about this whole penalty ordeal for pretty much the entire first half, the game was at a bit of a standstill, with the best chance coming from Ødegaard right before the break. Into the second half though, Endrick would be subbed on, and he's greeted by the roar of Brazilian hopes everywhere. 58 minutes played, it's Brazil on the break. Vini threads the needle brilliantly, and the second coming of Pele has just the keeper to beat. But here comes another big substitution. And that is one whole side of Brazil's attack dead now. Now Norway are starting to make things happen, and after lurking around undiagnosed the whole match, Erling Haaland comes out of nowhere to dunk on Gabriel for about the 800th time, and Norway have the lead versus the 5-time champs with only 10 minutes remaining. The Vikings are smelling weakness being released by Neymar's crippling gambling addiction, and Erling Haaland with little effort beams it into the low corner. And just like that, Norway eliminate Brazil. Brazil have crashed out in the last 16 for the first time since 1990. Oh wait, hold on guys, the Make-A-Wish kid's gonna score a goal. And once again, Brazil have still not beaten a European country in the knockouts since 2002. They also have still yet to beat Norway in a competitive match ever. Meanwhile, for the Norwegians, they move on to the World Cup quarterfinals for the first time in their history. Later that night was Mexico vs England, and having missed out on the Junction Boulevard party, I decided to head up to Corona. Viva Mexico! On the way there, by the way, I took some of my good German friends to a birria truck for the first time. Not sure how you go from this back to bread and meat, but that ain't my problem. Over in Mexico City, the fans were again causing a ruckus outside England's hotel, all the while the players were taking Viagra. And no, this wasn't for any massive orgy party. Don't get any ideas. It was simply to combat the lack of oxygen, since the Azteca is pretty high up there in altitude. Now, I know that sounds pretty funny too, but I have bad news. I lied. The English FA said themselves that this was never discussed. Whatever you say, guys. Viagra or not though, England didn't look too fazed by the altitude or fan atmosphere, as Jude Bellingham would score 2 goals just 2 minutes apart in the 38th minute. Moments later though, a Mexican free kick causes chaos in the box, and Julian Quiñones smashes it in to keep El Tri's hopes alive. Now it's Quiñones again as he lays it off to Raul Jimenez, but the ball goes just wide. Nonetheless, Mexico keep fighting to complete the comeback before halftime. It's Jimenez again, but Pickford saves it brilliantly. But things are about to get even tougher for England as Jarell Quansah gets sent off, and there couldn't be a better opportunity for Mexico with plenty of time.
Kane helps it on. Gordon running in. Goalkeeper's caught him. Penalty England.
Everything keeps working in the Mexicans' favor though. This time Harry Kane of all people gives away a penalty, and once more El Tri has a lifeline. From there, Mexico do all they can to find the equalizer they've been chasing all game, but England holds strong just long enough to escape the Azteca. So after another absolute classic in this tournament, England will move on to the quarterfinals to play Norway. Portugal vs Spain, the Iberian derby. Spain were hoping to get revenge for the Nations League, while Portugal were hoping to get revenge for 2010. Now these two have played each other in quite a lot of tournaments, and every single time it's a highly anticipated matchup. This was kind of disappointing though. It was mostly just Spain attacking, with Portugal's world-class defense carrying the foundation, because Roberto Martinez doesn't know how to do anything besides waste talent. Spain just didn't seem to have the edge to put this game to bed though. But then came Mr. Clutch. And in just 6 minutes, Mikel Merino scores the winner to send the Spanish to the quarterfinals. Meanwhile, for Portugal, Roberto Martinez quickly resigned in disgrace, and this would officially mark the end of an era for Cristiano Ronaldo.
Portugal airport is that way. And where's Ronaldo? He's crying in his car.
So, remember that Balogun red card that I mentioned in the previous round? Well, Donald Trump called Gianni Infantino about it, and just like that, the suspension was moved to after the tournament.
So I saw the play, and I'm a person that loves sports and was a good athlete. He didn't do anything wrong, and he's our best player or one of our best players, a very vital player, and he gave him a red card. I didn't know what that meant. And you know what? If they beat us, then they can be really proud. The other way, if they beat us, we'll say I say it was rigged, just like the election was rigged. I'm the one that got them to do it. It was not Biden was asleep.
Belgium were very angry about this decision, though, and rightfully so. I mean, the US and FIFA had just committed corruption together. In response, the Belgian FA filed an appeal, which was quickly denied without any actual explanation. Infantino then came out with his own response. He claimed that FIFA's judicial bodies were completely independent, and then in the very next paragraph confirmed that Donald did in fact call him, and Gianni said there was an ongoing legal process. Which makes no sense because you can't actually appeal a straight red card, so why the fuck would the judicial bodies be looking into something that can't even happen according to their own rules? Anyways, this move backfired quite hilariously, with the Belgians a lot more motivated than before. And with the US team shitting themselves, Belgium humiliated the Americans 4-1 in front of their own fans. With that win, the Red Devils advanced to the quarters for the third time in their last 4 World Cup appearances and will play heavy favorite Spain next.
President Trump just dropped this out. He's filling the new improved Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool with money.
Despite a shaky performance versus Cape Verde in the previous round, many expected Argentina to run through Egypt pretty easily. The Egyptians had other ideas though, and would send shockwaves throughout the whole tournament after just 14 minutes played. Moments later though, Argentina would win themselves a penalty and Lionel Messi would restore balance. Into the 57th minute now, it's Egypt again with Haitham Hassan chopping through the entire Argentinian defense. He leaves it for the king to work his magic, and Salah finds Zico, who finishes off a masterpiece of a goal. But hold on, because VAR has decided you can review something that happened on the other side of the pitch, and the goal's called off. Nonetheless, here's another break for the Egyptians. Hassan leaves his man disconnected from the Wi-Fi, and it's Zico to put the finishing touch again. Egypt will not be denied this time. And currently, the reigning champions, now 2-0 down, are all but certainly going home early. They have to act fast to avoid being eliminated, and Christian Romero helps them with a lifeline with just 10 minutes to play. 83 minutes played, momentum has shifted entirely. Argentina are playing the most aggressive offense we've not seen since the final, and Lionel Messi laces that shit in the net, and Egypt's 2-0 lead has been reduced to atoms. Into stoppage time now. Argentina find themselves on the break. They don't want more extra time. Lautaro Martinez takes his time, loops it up into the box for Enzo Fernandez, and Argentina come back from 2-0 down to break Egyptian hearts. But hold on, there was a foul right before the counter, in the box too, so the goal's called off. Wait, what do you mean this wasn't even checked?
Lionel Messi, you are banned from my restaurant. I'm sick of this guy. I'm sick of this guy!
Colombia vs Switzerland would round off the last 16 for us, and both teams would trade blows throughout the game. But it wasn't until extra time when people were really on the edge of their seats. 98th minute, Colombia corner delivery meets the head of Lukumi, but it's off the bar. 100 minutes now, Campas sends a knuckle from way out, but Kerbal does well to stop it. Then, 3 minutes later, Switzerland causes some chaos in the box, and it falls to Zeki Amdouni, but Vargas reacts brilliantly. 114th minute, Xhaka loses it in a bad spot, and now it's just Campas versus the keeper, but he misses it entirely. And so, with no one able to break the deadlock after 120, penalties. First penalty takers converts. That's maybe the first time that's happened in this whole tournament. Davison Sanchez then takes Colombia's seconds, and that streak's over now. Next up, Zeki Amdouni, and it's advantage Switzerland. Campas for Colombia, and he just squeezes it under the keeper. Now Manuel Kanji versus Vargas. Why are we still letting center backs take penalties this early on, man? 2-all the score now. Cucho Hernandez with a chance to put the pressure on the Swiss, but Kerbal denies him. Maybe Cedric Itten can take advantage of the opportunity, and he does. Advantage Switzerland once again. On to the last attempts now. Luis Diaz calmly slides it home to keep Colombia alive. And so it all comes down to Vargas versus Vargas. And Vargas wins it for his country. Switzerland finally end the drought and move on to the quarterfinals for the first time since 1954, where they will play the reigning champions. Meanwhile, Colombia's Hamilton Campas is currently in hiding after receiving death threats for his missed chance. Welcome back, USA 94. So I've been noticing in the comments a lot where people are like, oh, it's verses. Say verses. Listen, I am, but the us part is just really, really silent. I don't know why. I've always said that as a kid. It's a habit. I'm not fixing it for this video. I'm sorry. Anyways, we started the quarterfinals with France versus Morocco, and this wasn't even close. The French suffocated their prey all game long, but also Morocco's attack didn't really do anything. Like, I get they had a couple injuries, but I swear, the ref taking 3 minutes to review a penalty had more of an effect on their opponents than anything they actually did. In the end, France easily clean up shop with a 2-0 win and become the first nation to advance to the semis.
The fans and the people, they're so welcoming to me, you know. I've had dinner with so many random families that I never knew, and now they're my close friends. I don't call them friends, actually, I call them family. People from Morocco are my family. It's my second home.
In the next quarterfinal matchup, it felt like we were about to see the same thing, with Spain finding the back of the net at the half-hour mark. However, Belgium would not make it that easy, and the Spanish defenses breached for the first time in this tournament. From there, Spain would patiently build sequences to strike at the opposition, the Belgians, working off the vibes of '86, were pouncing on any loose ball they could find, all the while this Vietnamese stream was singing karaoke. But honestly, I owe the Belgians a huge apology, because even their defense was holding pretty strong. But then, Spain brought them on again. And it took only 2 minutes this time for Mr. Clutch to score yet another late winner for the Spaniards. So in the end, in a slightly closer game than expected, Spain move on to the semis, where they have a date with the French next. England vs Norway. Vinland Saga Yowie. I think it's time, though, that we finally address the elephant in the room. Erling Haaland. Throughout this tournament, everyone has fallen in love with Haaland. And I mean everyone. So much so that over 400 Peruvian babies have been named Haaland since the tournament started. Well, it could be worse, you know. But I cannot stress this enough. People have become obsessed with Haaland. I know a lot of people who haven't really been following the tournament, but their TikTok algorithm is quite literally just Haaland clip compilations. Like, we already knew this guy was a character, but people have been pointing out stuff like how he kicks the ball into people's faces into the goal, which I think has only really ever happened like once or twice. Also, back when Haaland was a teenager, he made a music video with some friends called Kigo Yo. That video blew up like 6 years ago. I've used it before in a video like 6 years ago. It's been catapulted into the stratosphere during this tournament. So much so that Kigo himself made a remix of it. Needless to say though, Norway were going into this game with many eyes on them, including Gilberto Mora for some reason. Going into this game though, England were the favorites, but Norway's physical stature was causing the English a lot of problems. And in the 35th minute, the Norwegians would draw first blood through a lightning strike from, Then in the 42nd minute, Norway on the counter. It's Sorloth with a wide open Haaland against one defender. This is all but certainly two. Any minute now. Sorloth, what the fuck? Norway might regret that. Here come England through Anthony Gordon, who finds Jude Bellingham with a great ball, and it's 1-1 now. But this one's definitely being brought back. The ball hit a camera wire on the goal kick before the sequence. Wait, what do you mean it stands? The rule literally is to stop play here. Aren't y'all gonna, like, I don't know, whip out the heart monitor or some shit? Oh, you did? And it didn't register anything? The bullshit, you can visibly see the ball's trajectory change. Into the second half, Norway starting where they left off, and after some havoc in the box, they retake the lead. However, it's pulled back because of a push on Elliot Anderson. That's pretty soft, honestly, come on. Into the 75th now, Norway's been posing so many problems on corner. It's Wolf off the crossbar, but it falls right to Berga, and that's 100% a penalty. What the fuck do you mean?
Rodgers instead. Rodgers lets it go. Nyland spills it. It's a goal.
Whatever, man. Lastly, we had Argentina versus Switzerland in Kansas City. Argentina's been questionable throughout these knockouts so far, but they quickly silenced the doubters through a 9th minute goal. However, it was never the attack that was the problem, and as Switzerland grew more and more into the game, they were posing a lot of problems for this shaky Argentinian defense. And after testing Emi Martinez a few times, Switzerland finally get a well-deserved equalizer in the 66th minute. However, everything turned on its head when Switzerland star forward Briel Mbolo received a yellow card for simulation. And I have to ask, man, why the fuck are you making this egregious ass dive? You're not even in the box. In fact, your back is facing the goal, and you knew you had a yellow. After that, it was all Argentina, but they just couldn't seem to find the answer. Nonetheless, in extra time, Julian Alvarez took matters into his own hands, and that is a beauty. Argentina would then grab one more right at the death to seal this one as they move on to the semis to play England. That's gonna be something else, man. We are into the semifinals now, and these are your remaining 4 teams. Spain are back for the first time since 2010 when they would win the whole thing. England's last appearance was in 2018 when they choked versus Croatia. France were finalists in the last edition, and finally, you got the reigning champions, Argentina. And first was Spain versus France. Many believe this was to be the real final, as both teams had been near flawless up to this point. But 20 minutes in, France's Luka Dean is entirely unaware of his surroundings, and he gives away a penalty. See, if this was me managing, that wouldn't have happened. If you know, you know. Oyarzabal, though, bags his 5th goal, and Spain already had the lead. This game was far from over, though. I mean, we've seen France's attack be just incredible this whole tournament. But then we all slowly remembered who exactly was in France's midfield. The Spanish had a strong core of Fabian Ruiz, Dani Olmo, and if that wasn't good enough, they had the near impenetrable Rodri. France, on the other hand, had Aurelien Chouameni and Adrien Rabiot. And it became pretty clear how big of a mismatch this was because Spain had the entire French team on a leash. This was just 90 minutes of non-stop suffocation, and the French attack that had looked unstoppable all tournament were now as effective as 07-08 Derby County. And so, with a dominating 2-0 performance, Spain are just 90 minutes away from a potential second star. But we still have one more semifinal before then. England versus Argentina. It cannot be understated how much these nations fucking hate each other. And they haven't even played each other in 20 years. Thing is though, they have met in this tournament 5 different times. England got the upper hand in the first 2 meetings, 1962 and 1966, when they went on to win their first and only World Cup. Into the 80s and 90s though, this is when the tensions really started flaring up. 1986 quarterfinal, Maradona's famous Hand of God goal during Argentina's run to their second star. While the majority of the world saw this as iconic, England was the exception, even 34 years later when Maradona died. 1998 round of 16, David Beckham gets a red card for kicking out at Diego Simeone, and Argentina would go on to win on penalties. Many in England believed Beckham was the reason they crashed out of this tournament, and it would basically take a qualification-saving free kick and a game-winning penalty versus Argentina in 2002 to redeem himself. But this history goes beyond the pitch, and it's all because of a territorial dispute regarding the Falkland Islands, or as Argentina likes to call them, Islas Malvinas. Tensions were especially high in the 80s when Argentina tried invading the islands, which in turn ignited the Falklands War that resulted in British victory. Now, I don't know much about the history of the Falklands beyond that. Honestly, whenever I hear about the islands, my mind goes straight to this.
Yo, Professor, what fucking island you talking about?
But to these countries, these islands have ignited waves upon waves of hate toward each other that have managed to transcend generations, and Argentina withdrawing from an agreement of a friendship in 2023 definitely put some gas on that fire. And then you remember a lot of football fans are just drunk hooligans, so when you mix that in with nationalism, you just got proper degeneracy on your hands.
My papa killed your papa. Up the Falklands.
Back to the present though, before the game even started, Argentinians were drowning out England's anthem. And then we had Jude Bellingham chirping at Lionel Messi, and in response, Messi gave him that look you see in those mafia movies that allude to the fact that shit is about to go down. The first half of this game would have made you think this was just a fight where the last team standing would be given the Falklands. I can't remember the exact number of fouls, but it was like 17 in the first 31 minutes. I expected nothing less. But within the carnage, England did seem to look a little bit better than the team who decided to start a Wikipedia article just to start shit. And with the game opening up in the second half, it would be the English to take the lead in the 55th minute. But as we've seen with Argentina all tournament long, they are the most threatening when they're down. It's the Wikipedia article in on goal, but what a tackle from Jed Spence!
DJ Spence! DJ Spence!
Only 30 minutes separate England from a return to the World Cup final for the first time since 1966. But with Argentina in maximum overdrive, head coach Thomas Tuchel's decisions in this stretch will be crucial. So he changes up the tactics and parks the bus? Thomas, no! You can't park the bus this early, Thomas! The average Football Manager player even knows this shit, man! Oh god. It's the music again.
Messi para enganchar. Buena esta para Enzo que vuelve a probar. ¡Gol! Messi engancha y va, tiró con la derecha.
And just like that, England bottle it again. They were playing so much better than Argentina. They had Argentina on the ropes, in fact, and they threw it all away. It is truly the history of the English. Now, while the game itself was over, the happenings on the pitch, far from it. Jude Bellingham hit Valentin Barco on the back of the head. It might have been because Barco said something, I don't know. And then the Argentinian team laid out a banner from the stands that read, Las Malvinas son Argentinas. The Malvinas are Argentinian. Now, under FIFA's own rules, this is considered political, so they would be punished for this. You know, kind of like how Haiti had to remove a symbol off their shirts. But as you've seen throughout this tournament, FIFA doesn't really follow its own rules. at all, really. By the way, the whole message itself is just flat out wrong. They belong to Brooklyn.
Because maybe you're gonna be the one that.
And after all,
You're my wonder wall.
The third place game was just chaos. I'm only summing it up though. England scored 4 goals in the first half. At this point, we just thought it was over. I mean, France weren't even trying. However, in the second half, France scored 3 goals over just 18 minutes, and all of a sudden, it's 4-3 with plenty of time to come back. In the 87th minute though, France shoot themselves in the foot, and Bukayo Saka now has a hat-trick. Unrelated, but Neymar's never done that, by the way. But then Ousmane Dembele makes it 5-4. What the hell is even happening? Finally, though, Jude Bellingham coming off the bench would seal the deal in the 8th minute of stoppage time, and England get their best finish since 1966. Also, with Mbappe's 2 goals in this game, he is now the top scorer in the whole tournament, and also the all-time leading World Cup scorer. That's right, the leader changed again. After 103 games down, we have finally reached the pinnacle, the World Cup final between Spain and Argentina. And this is a real everything circles back kind of moment. Why? Take a look at this photo. That is a 20-year-old Lionel Messi bathing a 5-month-old Lamine Yamal back in 2007. The photo came from a yearly thing Barcelona used to do with UNICEF, where they create a calendar with photos of players with families. And it just so happened that Lamine was paired with Messi. You really could not make this shit up. That was not the only lore going into this tournament, though. Slavko Vincic was selected as the main official for this tournament, a huge moment for the country of Slovenia. Back in 2020, Vincic was detained at a party that had cocaine, firearms, and $11,000 on the suspicion of it being all part of an international prostitution ring. Now listen, I wanted to set the tone with some suspense for this final. But this was kind of shit. Spain dominated every third of the pitch, and Argentina had 0 answers. Like, actually, they had no shots for a whole 90 minutes. Because they were so inferior, instead of, I don't know, playing the sport of football, Argentina decided to play like a bunch of thugs. And honestly, there should have been way more bookings. But you know what? It's fine. Because finally justice was served. Get the fuck off the pitch, McRacismo. Sing about black people now, you piece of shit. I hope you fucking die.
Unlucky lad.
Now down to 10 men. Not even the most egregious thuggery could save Argentina. In the 105th minute, Ferran Torres smashes it into the back of the net. No more slander for the rest of eternity, Mr. Torres, as Spain win their 2nd ever World Cup title. Yo, who invited my guy? Get the fuck out of here, bozo. This is most definitely Lionel Messi's last dance, though, and I'm sad to see him leave after 20 years. It's been an amazing journey, and I will always be grateful for how much he made me fall in love with this sport. The rest of them can go fuck themselves, though. Bye. It's finally over. I could finally take a break. I'm in such desperate need of a break, man. I'm basically on the verge of burnout right now. Before I go, though, I want to say a big thank you to everyone who supports this channel. Whether you were here since the very first qualifier preview back in September of 2023, or this is your very first video, you are the reason I get to live a dream I've had since I was 8 years old. You know, shit gets tough from time to time, you know? I can't lie, I crashed out multiple times while making this video. But you know what? At the end of the day, I'm doing what I love, and I would not trade this for anything in the world. By the way, if you're new to this sport and you've been wanting to get more of it, I'm sure you've heard about major competitions like the Premier League, Champions League, even MLS probably. It's a good starting point, but I implore you to explore further, because that's where you're gonna find those incredible stories that made you fall in love with this sport to begin with. Now, what's the easiest way to do that? Wikipedia deep dive. Just have no destination in mind. Just start with, I guess, some article about football. Run wild with the blue links. One of my favorite clubs is based in the 2nd division of Japanese football. I love them because of the story of how they managed to overcome the tragedy of the 2011 tsunami and nearly win the title just 2 years later. I made a video about this like 4 years ago now. You can watch it here. I always feel like I'm a casual, and then I get reminded pretty quickly when I talk to a good amount of people that that's not the case whatsoever, because more people than I expected don't actually know this, but there is a football scene in every single country that you could think of. Every single one. Actually, there's a book I've been reading called Around the World in 80 Clubs by my good friend Paul Watson. It has so many stories about football clubs that you have never heard about, and every single one of them is so interesting. I'll probably do a collab at some point with it, but I'll leave the link to buy the book below. Now, on the other hand, if you are one of those really annoying ass political LARPers, the ones that are so performative in everything they say and don't know actually what the fuck they're talking about, don't even come back for 2030. No one wants you here. Please leave, get the fuck out. I never want to see you again. I never want to even hear from you again. Thank you. Alright, like I said before, I'm really burnt out. I need a break. I'm going on vacation now. Love y'all.